Welcome, Voltron fans. This is Marc Morel, your host for Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast. We're here for another exciting toy episode. This isn't a specific toy review. This is going back to nostalgic toy times for Voltron. So we are in the 40th year of Voltron right now. This is the 40th anniversary year, and I want to thank the Voltron store for this wonderful shirt. And this is the official 40th logo, by the way. So, of course, I have my co-host on with me, Greg Tyler. Welcome, Greg.
Hello, Marc Morel. Hello, Voltron fans across the universe. If you're seeing this and not just listening to our podcast, you'll see behind me a screen cap from a TV ad for the Panosh Place Voltron action figures and vehicles and all that. And I am beyond excited by our next guest. You've probably heard me as recently as during the Playmates Toys podcast that we had, where we had Jeff Trojan talking about a re-release of their 1984 classic Voltron, and I mentioned that their Voltron is my favorite toy of Voltron that doesn't have action figures of its pilots. And the reason I have that caveat is that my absolute favorite Voltron toy is not the Matchbox version, not the Blitzwave version, not the pick your version. It's the Panosh Place version. And I am beyond excited that we have as our very special guest in this podcast, the designer of Voltron from the Panosh Place toy line, Patrick Baran. Welcome, Patrick.
Hi, guys. Welcome. This is great to be on.
So great to have you, Patrick.
It truly is. So I've got a little, here's one of the lions from, of course, with the video and the fake background that I've got here. It's getting masked out, but there we go. There's a blue lion right here.
Oh, yeah.
So Blue says hi. But
Thanks.
so we would just love to hear from the beginning. Number one, how in the world did we all get in touch with you? How did you get in touch with folks that ultimately led you to reaching me? I know I found out about you through Mark Oliver,
Right.
and so let's connect the dots. How did we wind up talking?
Well, I guess I fell off the radar for a long time. But Tim Rosen, he found me, and he's a huge Voltron collector. And he was talking to me for over a year. Of course, it was COVID, and trying to, meet with people and things of that nature. And I was also retiring, and so I was finishing up with the company I was working for, and I just didn't have the time to meet with him. So this year, once everything was settled, I was in a new studio, which I'm in right now. I met Tim and Mark and had them come to the studio and showed them some of my Voltron pieces and some of my drawings and other paraphernalia that I have from Voltron. And they were super excited. And all Mark kept saying is, did you ever go on a podcast? Did you ever think of a podcast? I'm like, no. So anyway, he got in touch with you, Greg, and here I am.
Oh,
That's awesome.
Let's Voltron.
thank you.
All right.
So yeah, we already got that clip for the end of the podcast there.
Yes.
So we want to thank definitely Tim and Mark for getting you in touch with us, and thank you for being on with us. This is just an amazing thing. It's difficult to get in touch, and I'll say, because there was a time when I was trying to reach out to different people who had worked with Panosh Place over the years, and the few times I was able to find anybody, they all wound up being, with one exception, dead. Actually, two exceptions. They were dead ends. But many years ago, I spoke with, oh my gosh, I cannot remember her name. She designed the Blythe dolls and worked at Marvin Glass as one of the sculptors of the action figures.
Okay.
I cannot remember her name. I'll have to look that up and add it back in maybe. But I had a phone conversation with her over a decade ago, and she has since passed. And then I believe I had a Facebook Messenger chat with John Fertig, who had designed.
John and I went to college together.
Really?
Yes, we're industrial designers from Cleveland Stravart.
All right.
And it was John Furtick that got me to Marvin Glass.
Oh,
Okay. Well, why don't we get into this and talk about how you got into toys to begin with?
yeah.
Well, okay, I was a product designer, and graduating from Cleveland School of Art, moved to Chicago, had a job, and a gentleman hired me, and I basically had a piece of my portfolio that he used to get another job, and he let me go. So I was in Chicago 1 month, and I was hired and fired. And so John found me and said, "You ought to come and take an interview at Marvin Glass and Associates." And I said, "Marvin Glass and Associates?" I go, "What do they do?" He goes, "Oh, they're toy designers." I go, "John, I don't want to do toys. I'm a car guy. I don't want to do toys." And he's going, "No, you really, I think you'd be really good at this. You should really give it a shot." And so I went to all the industrial design places in Chicago, and they liked me, but they said, "Hey, you know, right now we have no positions or whatever." And I got a call again from John. He says, "You hungry enough? Come and take an interview." I went and took an interview, was hired on Friday. I started work on Monday.
Wow.
It was changed my life.
Wow.
Absolutely changed my life. And less than a year, almost 2 years later, Voltron.
Wow.
And so it was pretty incredible.
That's amazing. And just to close the loop, I had forgotten the name of the sculptor, the action figure sculptor I talked with. Her name was Allison Katzman, and
Yes.
she apparently, yeah, so she had invented the Blythe dolls for Kenner back in the 70s, and then
Yes.
worked for Marvin Glass later and made many of the action figures.
Correct.
So
But
yeah,
these,
I'm sorry.
but not
What was it?
these.
Oh, certainly not Voltron.
No.
Yeah, but she had mentioned she had done some of the hero characters, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, so what were some of the projects that you worked on for Marvin Glass in the couple years before Voltron came along?
Oh, geez. I did many things. I did a Robot Man game. I did a Power Barons for Milton Bradley. I did I can't even tell you how many things I've done. Marvin Glass, I worked 5 years at Marvin Glass, and they closed the studio at 5 years, and they let me go. And then I started another industrial, in toy design firm called IDEA in Chicago.
Mm.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that we were called Broken Glass. When Marvin Glass broke up, there were all these little toy invention firms that popped up, and
Okay.
ours was one of them. So I worked on cars. I worked on like Bigfoot things. I worked on things for Matchbox. I worked on a lot of games. I worked on a lot of games. I have a Masters of the Universe game called Rescue from Snake Mountain.
Wow.
It's was pretty cool. Patent on that one too as well.
Mhm.
Marvin Glass was a good place for me. I did a lot of work there. I can't remember half the things I did because it was so long ago, you know.
Sure. Understood. I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. So,
So it's kind of
but that's amazing. So, um, in your experience, having worked at Marvin Glass and at least at that company, IDA, you said?
yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. So IDA. So, what would you say is if you could guesstimate? Pretend you have a toy company, a company known for making toys, like a Kenner or a Hasbro or a Tyco, or thinking back to game companies, the Parker Brothers, the Milton Bradleys. What portion of design do they actually do versus outsourcing to a company with a reputation such as the firms you worked at?
Well, basically, what we did is we gave them the widget, the idea. And a lot of times they would refine it. They would have the illustrators, and we would basically give them the concepts. And then they'd have their designers turn it into a product. Not that we always didn't give them the best looking product we could, but everybody likes to put their fingerprints on something. So they would change it and make their tweaks. But for us, it was just the invention and the gimmick, because that's what Marvin Glass was known for. The thing that, you know, kids would want.
Got it.
So-
So one of the examples I think that, and I hope I'm not misremembering this, Marvin Glass, one of the things that came out of that company was the Mousetrap game. Is that a correct
Mousetrap,
statement?
Light Bright, Tippet, um, Operation,
Oh,
Simon.
nice.
So, I mean, Marvin Glass was the independent design firm for toys in the world. We'd have everybody from all over the country, all over the world coming to us for toy ideas, toy companies from all over the world. And we used to say, well, I used to say that, we were the Top Gun of toy design. We were the best of the best. And, there were a lot of good toy designers out there, and there were some in California and everything else, but we were the original, we were the best. And that's just how we rolled. And that's why when Panosh needed to have Voltron done, they came to our studio, no one else.
Wow. And so Panosh then approached you. So Marvin Glass was approached by other companies. Marvin Glass didn't reach out to other companies.
No.
People came to them. Okay.
Yeah, they came to us for different ideas. Hasbro, Mattel, everybody, Galoo, you name it, they came to us and to our studios, and then we would present toy ideas to them.
That's amazing. Another favorite toy line of mine from the 80s was a very short-lived toy line, but it's in the same form factor as the Voltron line, which is the Blue Star Trek: The Next Generation. They had a set of figures and planned to make the Enterprise playset and all these other things, and it was the rug was pulled from them, and it went to Playmates Toys eventually. But that's a favorite too. So I don't know if Marvin Glass had anything to do with that. But
Oh,
what
we
a
didn't
cool
have anything
line.
to do with that one. This
Okay.
was an oddity that we did Voltron. I mean, we made our money by inventing new products and licensing them to the toy manufacturers for royalties. So having a whole product line come to us, and the concept, everything, where we had to build the models. And the issue with all of this was we did this in 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Wow.
6 weeks.
Holy moly.
Well, they got the cartoon came out, what, in 84?
Yeah. September 10th, 1984.
Cartoon came out in 84, and it was such a success that Panosh got the license to do the plastic Voltron. Matchbox had the Voltron, but Panosh got but they wanted to come out with a whole toy line, not just Voltron. They wanted the whole thing, but they wanted it for the next year. So we had 6 weeks to get our prototypes done, tooling prototypes, everything had to look just perfect so they could send it to New York Toy Fair. And then from there out to China. So we did 2 or 3 of each of these, and then sent some to China and some to New York Toy Fair, so they could sell it and sell in the line.
So they were hedging their bets that they would get the sell through at New York Toy Fair to tool up.
It was not even a hedging your bet. It was basically a sure thing. Think about it. Voltron was the biggest cartoon or series to hit the airways. There was nothing to play with. So they really play with. So they just said, if we can get this done, and our ownership, the partners, they said, well, yeah, we'll get it done for you. And so then it was up to us to pull off a miracle. We had 75 people. I don't remember all the people at Marvin Glass, but everybody was working day and night, basically 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 weeks to do everything you see was done with us. And I don't think anybody else could have done it. I don't think, but we had so many people there with such model making expertise, designers, some of the best designers I've ever worked with were there. So it was just an incredible place.
Wow.
And you want to know the kicker of all this?
What's that?
When Panosh brought their Voltron to market, Matchbox pulls up with a big container ship and they were tested for lead. It all went back to China. They had to destroy all of them. So who was left? Panosh Place.
Wow.
So
Sweet
they
spot.
had the market for that Christmas.
Yeah. So
Wow.
as I looked into that history of that lead scare, and I believe it was 80. Well, okay, it was officially announced in 87, but maybe there was a foreknowledge of it. I don't know, but it was around 1987 when the Consumer Product and Safety Commission announced that. So apparently what had happened is Matchbox was having such success with its Voltron toys that manufacturing was expanded to, I think, Taiwan, and it was the Taiwanese Voltron metal toys, the small ones and the large ones,
Right.
that wound up having lead content, and there was a
Yeah, and
recall. So
it just killed it. So that, it left Panache with a big field. I mean, and plus
Wow.
they had we had the play sets. We had all we had all the different price points, which was, exactly what Panache set us up to do. So,
yes. So on the subject of having products at different price points and all that,
sure.
the first thing as an adult looking back,
Mhm.
I also was a big fan of the Kenner Star Wars line back in the day. And I have to tell you, when I look at the product mix of the first wave, the 85 wave, and the unreleased 86 wave, I can't help but think that the Kenner Star Wars toys might have been a source of inspiration. Um, what are your thoughts on that?
I could see that. I mean, I don't remember ever looking back at that, but I will tell you this, that I traveled to Cincinnati to have Rudy Vapp Studios, who did all the original Kenner Star Wars figures, do these figures. So Rudy sculpted all of the figures.
Really?
Yeah.
The 85s and the 86s, huh?
Well, 85s, yeah, and 86s, yeah.
Oh, okay. Because now I wish I could.
I believe if my memory serves me, because you know what, Tim said there was a series 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
remember working because I went to Cincinnati and I worked with Rudy personally, and we sculpted. Well, he sculpted. I was just there and traveled back and forth to Chicago to Cincinnati.
Okay.
But I remember the rest of the figures that you have in their background.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
So what you're seeing there is from the first wave that was released in 85, and then there were plans
yeah,
for a second wave in 86. And when
right,
I talked with Allison Katzman many years ago, she had suggested that she had at least designed, if not sculpted, some of the hero figures. Now,
okay,
again, it's been over a decade. I remember her mentioning Pidge and maybe Keith, and she had told me that her background was more in dolls
right,
and baby dolls, things like
yeah,
that. And I always thought that there was a little bit of that kind of a quality, in particular in the Keith figure, the character with the red helmet that you see
right,
in the image.
right.
There are some indications just in the leg and hip design of an almost baby doll kind of quality. And I don't mean that to rag on the design, but
No.
it has a little bit of that look to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as opposed to a more straight leg look like the guy with the blue helmet, Lance
Right,
there.
right,
And it's very interesting. But whatever the case, the reason why I mentioned Kenner Star Wars is because Panosh came out with 12 figures initially, which is what Kenner did.
right,
There were just 3 or 4 vehicles like the X-Wing, the TIE Fighter, the Millennium Falcon, which is kind of like what Panache did. Beyond the Lions, they had a handful of enemy ships. And
right.
then Kenner had the Death Star space station, a single playset, which I guess might have had the counterpart in the Castle of Lions.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was just maybe just dumb coincidence. I don't know, or maybe it's 2 companies thinking along the same lines, just understanding how the industry might accept a new line. I don't know.
Well,
Uh,
I can tell you that it was a 6-week blur. And when you're basically all you have is a picture, and there's no scale, and you have to create not only product but something that will actually be played with. Everything kind of mixes it together.
sure.
I'll be honest. I just know that it was a project that was, creating, a lion that also could take an action figure,
Mm-hmm.
a 4.5 inch figure. and then, when laying that out and creating that is just, it was a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Oh, I can only imagine. I've often said that in another life I would have been a toy designer. I can't. I just love toy design. The whole idea of it.
I just wanted to show you this. This was one of my little breadboards that I made for the lion.
Oh, nice.
So you could see they're making him big enough to put a figure.
Uh-huh.
So
So I don't want to make this about me at all, but
no,
your design, in addition to me loving the toys outright, your designs were a direct inspiration for my own custom toy that I've made a few
I
years back.
saw it. I loved it. Good
Oh
job.
my gosh, thank you so much.
It's
Someday I need to.
wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I had so much. So I don't want to take the thunder out of this conversation. We're here to talk about you and your experiences. I just want you to know that your work was a huge source of inspiration to designing a Panosh Place inspired vehicle team Voltron. It was just a blast. And when you showed me that breadboard mock up there with the paper fasteners and all that, I have gone through those kinds of things myself, both with that design and another one I'm working on now. And it's, oh my gosh, love it.
Good.
So a fan and a follower on
So,
a very small scale.
so
No.
Greg, let's give him a chance to mention the patent that he was talking to us about before we came on.
So this is a kind of a collage of excerpts from the patent.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks
There's
like it
my
was issued.
name.
There it
Hey.
is.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I was just going to say this is the thing, and there are people online. I believe they have Etsy shops where they sell uh, kind of like a framed art piece of the front view of the robot, just for grins, usually on some kind of parchment or something that looks like parchment. But I'm very familiar with this patent, and it's neat to talk with you who you got your name right on it. It's great. So can you walk us through how, what led up to the patent after the, I mean, how does the whole chronology of designing all the toys work out, as you
Well,
recall?
this is the rough part because it was such a all hands on deck. I personally worked on Voltron that you see here. I worked on obviously the Coffin of Deception and a few other the pieces, and then other people I worked with, they all worked on other things. But this guy in particular, you start designing, as we did right here with the breadboard, and well, like, how's this going to work? And then, once you start getting that and the size of everything, because you have to put a figure inside of it,
Mhm.
you have to connect them somehow.
Yeah.
And if you notice, like with Voltron, it comes down and the lion just kind of sucks up into, or the back of the lion sucks up into the other line. So it's
Yeah.
like, but all right, you don't have with toys.
Right.
So you have to figure out how do we manually click this together, but still make it when it's taken apart, you still have a toy.
Mhm.
I just came up with the key mechanism. I thought this would work fine if we roll this up, and I designed a part, and then made another breadboard of that part, and then it went to a model maker, and then we started working on the black lion and the tails for the rest of these type pieces that we
Mhm.
did.
Yeah.
And then changed the the lions accordingly, the red, the blue, the yellow, and the blue, red, yellow, red. So anyway,
Green. Yeah. Red, green, blue, and yellow.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just looked back at and I brought him out. So kind
That's
of
awesome.
look at him. But yeah, that was the hardest part, because you had 6 weeks and I had people waiting for me at my desk, at my drawing table, to say, hey, I need this for make a part. I got to make these things. And so it was just like all hands on deck, and thinking and designing it, as I was just breathing. So it was just one of those crazy moments in my life that it all worked out.
Mm.
That's all I can say. So
That's
when you,
amazing.
that
Go ahead.
whole key, no, just saying, when you could see by the patent, that whole key mechanism, that was pretty simple. And yet,
And yeah, and effective. I mean,
once you started playing with the toy, I mean, when you first got the toy, it was like, breaking that open. But once you got it loose, it would snap in, snap out. It was pretty good.
yeah, I remember I had a Matchbox Voltron before I had the Panosh Place Voltron. I still have the Matchbox one standing over, in lion forms over here, but I remember not being able to figure out immediately how to remove those legs, the leg lions. I mean, there's this
Mhm.
weird tab, and you got to push it in a certain way to loosen that connection to get it out. And the arms, you had to kind of like swing the arm outward to push against a little spring-loaded plate on the shoulder of the black lion. And it was pretty complicated for a young toy, or for young kids.
Mhm.
And the Panache design, it's elegant. I mean, the way they all hook together like that.
Thank you. It was really a lot of fun to do. I mean, when I was all said and done, it was like a blur. I mean, everybody in the whole studio was just going Mach 2 with their hair on fire. So it was, once we finished Voltron, because it was the main piece, but it was such a piece that, you weren't just making a toy, you had 5 of them.
Yeah.
They all had to connect together. So, in a cartoon, that's easy. But in real life, it was a little more complicated than that. It took a lot of experimentation, but it worked out, I think. I think so.
Yeah, it just blows my mind. So with everything happening in a 6-week period, this might answer the next question I'm about to ask off the cuff. If the character in the back in my background, the yellow guy, Hunk, one of the features that is, I guess, a little odd about him is that his left arm sort of curves across his chest just a little bit, the bent one.
Mhm.
And I have wondered for a while, and I've come to believe at least that it was sort of bent over because the character is wider than the other ones. And if
Yes,
it had been straight armed, it probably wouldn't fit in your yellow lion.
correct.
All right.
Correct. You are correct.
Woohoo.
Yay, woo.
Yeah.
So,
Mark,
Okay.
so Greg, the
Yeah.
one that you have in the picture there is the plain yellow key badge for Hunk, right?
Probably. It's so low res. I'll assume you're right.
Because the other variant had the black cross on the yellow key badge.
Yeah. This is more of a manufacturing question.
yes,
So
it
just to
is.
make Yeah, so they had what a lot of collectors have come to realize over the years. Thanks for mentioning that, Marcus. That there are variants of the figures and many of the toys too, with
Right.
subtle differences. The figures are among the more noticeable ones, especially the pilots, because some of them have, as Marcus mentioned, a little badge on the left breast is either a plain color or it's a plain color with a black cross on it,
Mhm.
or and the ones with the cross on them have painted belt buckles in most cases, and the ones that do not tend to have unpainted belt buckles. And there are other subtle differences, and even the Voltron toys, the wings taper more on some of them than on others. For example, the red wings on the Black Lion.
Right.
Is that something you have any understanding or knowledge, or as to why the company might have done that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I hate to say it like that, but no, I don't. But I have been manufacturing toys in the Orient for over 40 years now. And I can tell you that as things go to different factories to be made, there's certain things that the factories do change because they might have been running out of this paint or that, or somebody could make something a little easier and they cheap it out, but there's always that subtle little difference of them trying to save a few pennies.
Mm,
Okay.
And
That
that's
makes
what they
sense.
do.
yeah.
Okay.
But in this case, I cannot tell you that why they did what they
Yeah.
did. I don't know.
That's perfectly fine. So the 6 weeks wrap up as you're working on all this, the 6 week blur, 24/7.
Right.
Um, what happens then? I mean, Toy Fair happens. Did Toy Fair happen as part of that blur?
Yes.
Okay.
It was at the end. That the end of the blur was Toy Fair. So
Mhm.
we shipped a set of everything we did to New York for Toy Fair. And they were being, and also at the same time, we shipped a set, or actually two sets to China
Mhm.
to be, well, Hong Kong to be made at that time. It was Hong
And
Kong.
how much do you, and maybe you don't recall, again, this is, it's a blur and it's been a while.
Okay.
How much interaction did your team have with the folks at Panosh Place or the folks at Marvin Glass? I mean, you were obviously answering directly to your employer, Marvin Glass,
Correct.
but you were answering to a client, Panosh Place. What
Correct.
kind of what kind of constraints do you recall each of those masters, if you will, imposing on the folks cranking that out, other than get it done?
Well, we basically followed the cartoon as best we could, and Panache Place was very happy with what they were seeing. As you can tell by some of your slides that are coming up, I think that we kind of made a toy out of what they had in the cartoon. So
Yeah.
I think everybody was very happy with what we were churning out.
What
Oh, yeah.
was there somebody from World Events Productions that acted as a consultant for you, or did you just get reference materials from like videotapes or something like that?
Well, yeah, we originally had, there was a meeting with the partners. There was somebody there from the studios that left some stills and VHS tapes, and easy for me to say. And so those are what we worked from. You know, we all sat and watched cartoons for a couple days. So you know, at least the whole, you know, first series. And then from there on, we went and took stills and just started cranking. I mean,
Wow.
it was just a blur, but it was
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
I always wondered in the early days how they made, you know, from a two-dimensional cartoon, how they made three-dimensional figures and things like that. And I guess it's just a matter of seeing how many different angles you can get on those characters or on those robots, right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. You just do your best you can, because especially with any illustrations change. And you know, they're all in action pose. Everything's got to be moving. So it's like you have to use a little bit of your own imagination to say, all right, we'll fill in some of this blank here. You know,
Mhm.
it's down this way. In this version, he looks like this. So if he's standing straight edge or a little curve, it's going to look like this. So you kind of do your best you can. And then once you start making a three-dimensional model, it all starts to, you know, come together as far as what you're seeing and what shows in a cartoon.
Right.
Makes any sense.
I love so I'm also a Star Trek fan, and there was in the 1970s, there was a gentleman named Franz Joseph who created blueprints of the original Enterprise, and he made a tech manual of different ships and props and all that. And I had interviewed his daughter for a Star Trek fan website, and he had been interviewed, some archival interviews, and he talked about how he'd served in World War II, and one of his unique strengths as an illustrator was to be able to take photographs of military aircraft and interpolate what the orthographic views would look like, the top view, side view, front view. And it almost sounds like that's what you are talking about when you're seeing action poses of the robots and stuff, and going back to what do the straight on shots look like from there. Is that fair?
Yes, that is fair. That is fair. Yeah, because I'm definitely not an illustrator, but I can build a model, and I'm a great ideation person. So
Well, you certainly knocked Voltron out of the park with
yeah,
your
you know
work.
what? That's really the hardest thing too, is because it's probably the most popular toy I've ever designed, and it was like so early in my career. And it's not like I haven't designed other things that are very popular, but everybody worldwide knows Voltron.
Mm.
So it's just like, what do you do after Voltron? Jeez.
So before we dive into some of the details of the Voltron toys themselves, what are some of the items that the things that you've brought to help to bring to market outside Voltron? I mean, you'd mentioned some things before Voltron. What about some of the stuff afterward?
Oh, geez. I have so many things. This is one I'll just show you this. See this little guy here?
Mhm.
This is,
Oh, that is cool.
so this this is called a switcheroo.
Uh-huh.
I did this for a Wild Republic, which was a company I worked for 17 years. So,
Oh, that is
so I just
neat.
retired from this company. So I've done things for them. And like in IDEA, we did things like Spike Ball. We did cruisers, which were pocket-sized roller skates.
Hmm.
Magnif, which was a gumball banks. I've done just wow. I mean, I've done robots. I did worked on the Max robot from Max Toys or something like that. It's a about a 36-inch tall, no, 30-inch, no, 24-inch. That's what
Okay.
the robot, it clamps and it does things like that. So we worked on the mechanics of it all and how it would work. And we didn't do any programming or anything like that, but I worked with them and their designers to do that. So there's just so many different things. And I want to share one thing with you if I can.
Yeah.
Please do.
Is that, you know, in 85, because I'd done all this work on Voltron, I did all the LJN key cars.
Did
Oh,
you really?
wow.
So yeah, I did the key cars for LJN.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
amazing.
So I was like the Voltron guy in 1985. So
That is so what for the benefit of the folks who were just listening, Patrick just showed some of the LJN Sword Blazer toys. They were very much like key cars, like you've described. I love those things. I've got a couple of those myself, and
um,
they're really, really cool. Now
I
so
I
I
just
gotta
don't-
ask. So one of World Events Productions partners back then was a group called the Merchandising Corporation of America. And I discovered as an adult that in the UK, they did a lot of, they were the licensing partner for World Events Productions at that time. And in the UK, there was a Voltron annual, kind of a hardback children's storybook with a bunch of illustrated stories. And it is an interesting, eclectic hodgepodge in terms of the illustrations. There are illustrations of the lions and the characters that look like they came right out of the cartoon. And then there are some that look just like your LJN key cars. And they're just all mixed together as you read the story. The artwork is so crazy from image to image. I don't know if I imagine that's completely outside of anything that you had worked on,
it is,
but
but you know, I just wanted to share your Voltron because it's something I did in 85. So that's why
Mhm.
that's
I had
that's
nothing
true.
to do with the European versions.
Okay. Well, that's just amazing to see. Um, Mark, would you be okay? And Patrick, if we jumped into some of these illustrations or images
Oh,
from the,
yeah.
Please
Go right ahead.
do it.
all right, we'll do. And what you're seeing here is kind of a composite. The background is what was in the 1986 Toy Fair catalog from Panosh Place, which on the left, the heroes, on the right, the villains. And so you're seeing a mixture of toys that had been released in 1985 and toys that were planned for release in 1986. And I will be asking you about those as we go forward, if you're cool with that. I would
I'm
love to.
cool.
They were designed, but they were never built.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So So here are the from the 1985 wave, the original 12 action figures.
Right.
The five Voltron Force pilots on the left and the seven villains on the right. And one thing that looking back was very unique about even the action figures is that the bad guys outnumbered the good guys. That's so rare. I mean, if you look at Transformers, you'll see about twice as many Autobots as Decepticons back in the day. GI Joe in general, grossly outnumbered Cobra, etc. And Panosh Place was pretty unique in the mix of these characters.
And I'm sure that the voice actors for Nanny and Karan are very upset right now.
Because they didn't get figures.
They didn't get figured.
Yeah. And Hunk is the gentleman in the yellow on the left, the hero, and you can see how his left arm is curved across his chest, kind of like he's holding his belt there. And
Exactly.
and as you mentioned, I guess that was to make him fit in your lion.
Yes.
All right.
And
All right, so here's
of course we didn't get Sven back then either.
nah, Sven was a lost character in the toy line, I guess. So here's Voltron.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Voltron was released in, I mean, there were different international variants in the packaging and all that, but
Right.
on the left is the window box that seems to be more common these many years later, and then on the right, a more traditional solid box. And this the illustration in the center is from the back of one of those packages, and it shows that keying that you had designed there.
Right.
And can you describe how do you recall how all that came about in your mind as you were cranking away during that 6-week blur?
Well, as I showed you before, that little breadboard that's carried me throughout my career with the this was key to everything. Because when you start looking at the edge and how it's going to lock in and fit into the lion versus this lion versus that lion, and then how long the tails will have to be, so you could it would still be a lion, but yet it would go in and click. It was one of those trial and error pieces that we worked on. Like I said, I made many breadboards for this one, so that it would work and everything would click together.
Yeah, and I love the way that the legs of the black lion are what clip the tails in place so that everything stays connected. Um, there, I mean, having designed, again, I don't want to go back to my own stuff, but I can tell you that in my own hobby work, designing toys that accommodate action figures, obviously that takes up a lot of the internal real estate of each of these toys. And you have to think outside the box on how to make these things connect. And Matchbox, for example, had the feet of the black lion going into the backsides of the blue and the yellow lions, and you
Right.
just can't do that with the figures inside.
No, no, and
So
that was a big part of this was, making sure the figures would fit inside the legs or in the lions. And so it was one of those, as well as when you look at the length of the tails, they can't go too far, otherwise you can't turn the black legs.
yeah,
So you're kind of tough. You just gotta always, everything was a measurement, so it was pretty cool.
yeah, no doubt.
All I can.
So here's that patent that we had seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And then here are images of the lions in their boxes.
Individuals, yeah.
Yes. And then down below in the center is an image of the red lion with one of the prototype figures of Lance sitting in it,
Right.
illustrating how they fit in. And so one of the things that's very unique about this design versus in the decades since, in the 90s, Trendmasters made a version of Voltron that could hold action figures. And then in the 2000s, Mattel did with a Matty Collector version. And there have been some smaller ones that have teeny tiny little figures. But this one is unique in that at least the limb lions, um, it's very front and center that these characters are inside the lion. There's the large clear canopy. And do you recall what led to the aesthetic choice to make those clear as opposed to opaque, for example?
Well, you want to see the figures inside. I mean, that whole thing, they're astronauts. So to see them in the vehicles, that's part of the play. So that's why we did it that way.
I agree completely.
We're
And,
space explorers.
exactly. We're defending the universe by that.
That's right.
Somebody's got to see you coming, right?
Right.
Anyway, look at the graphics on these things. I mean, that was another fun part, was doing the graphics for these pieces as well, because there was nothing there. We had no idea what we should put in there.
Was this part of the 6-week blur as well, the packaging design?
No, not, but the actual lions themselves.
Okay, so like the decals and
Look at all the decals and things like that. I mean, no, there we go.
Yeah.
Look at all the decals. I mean, when you even open up the piece, you had the little.
I'm gonna stop sharing so we can see
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's all right. So there you go. When you look inside, there's the control panel.
Yeah.
You kind of just, doing, and again, 6 weeks. So we're just like going at it.
And did you have a model for a control panel from the
No.
show?
We just invented it.
You kind of made it up.
We kind of made it up. And that was the nice part too, is as we made things up, the show picked up some of the pieces. I think that some of the Robo Beasts, John Furtick designed, and they actually put it in the cartoon.
Wow.
That's amazing. I am, again, being someone who's a big fan of toys of the 70s and 80s in particular. I have always been fascinated by the control panel designs of toys from that time, like the Star Wars spacecraft, like the Millennium Falcon, and various decals that go in there. And that's one of my favorite things about these Lions is the control panels, the decals. They're
Oh,
just love
thanks.
them. Yes,
That was
love them.
I mean, imagine if, in the beginning, they were taking this off of Beast King Go Lion, right? But then they had those extra 20 episodes that they were able to commission from Korea. And they were able to actually have toys at that point to work off of if they wanted to.
Yeah, and so briefly, without getting into the nitty-gritty details, the Lion episodes of Voltron were originally adapted, as Mark just mentioned, from an anime program called Go Lion, and then they made 20 extra episodes with original animation. And there is a marked difference in some of the visual designs between the ones that were adapted versus the ones that came later. You'll notice the color schemes of some of the enemy vehicles and some of the design elements do seem to resemble the Panosh Place toys.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Okay.
So here's
Oh,
the Castle of Lions. Did you work in any way on this one?
I did not, but John Zaruba and Don Rosenwinkel did. And those two guys did one heck of a job.
They did.
Yes. I loved this when I was watching them make it. I'd pass by and I'd see it being done. It was a lot of fun.
It's really great. This is one of our absolute favorite play sets of the 1980s. It's well laid out. I mean, it's it's like an action dollhouse. It's so incredible.
There's so much play value in this set. I mean,
Yeah.
I love this set.
Yeah,
really
and yeah, it's just great. The control room with the dial to change the displays on the screen on the second level in the center. Yeah, it's remarkable.
And we have no idea what the inside of the Planet Doom playset would have looked like, right?
Well, we'll get to that, but the short answer is yes, we don't know. But one thing that's a favorite feature of mine is that on this back surface of the castle in the center, the star shape is one of the visual details of the cockpit of the Lion from the cartoon. And the tray with the key is reminiscent of the receptacle for the key in the cartoon as well. So just neat stuff. All right, so this is another patent from Marvin Glass, and you had mentioned John Zaruba.
John Zaruba.
They actually patented the elevator.
John Zaruba was lead designer for this. I was just a junior designer, you might say. I was just 2 years in at Marvin Glass, but John Zaruba had been there for many, many years. And so John was in charge, and they had me underneath John. And John developed like appendicitis or something just before we started doing the Voltron project. And so everybody looked at me. All right, so now what, kind of thing. And so that I started doing Voltron, That's what I mean. It's just changed my life. So I just started, drawing and coming up with, Voltron itself. And then, John, of course, got better and then came, but he was the head. He drove the project for the partners as far as
Okay.
designers go.
Mhm.
Okay. Just it's just so amazing to learn about this stuff. So here are some other items from the initial wave of toys from Panosh Place. There are a couple ships. These are all enemy vehicles. So the Doom Blaster is the vehicle on the far left. The red and black. Well, they're both red and black. The one that's mostly red, and then you've got the Zarkon Zapper. So the Doom Blaster had a spring-loaded disc launcher
Right.
beneath the pilot compartment, which was a
Fantastic.
fun feature.
George Gomez worked on those.
I'm sorry, who was that?
George Gomez, he worked on
Okay.
those.
Okay. These are amazing. These are just so much fun. And the vehicle next to it is the Zarkon Zapper, which has an electronic light and sound feature. So there's like a barrel that sticks out from the lower pylon at the front. And then when you depress the trigger on the upper pylon, if you press the button just a little bit, there's a slow laser sound. And if you press it a little harder, there's a faster sound. So fun stuff. Um, Over on the right are the coffins of doom and the coffins of doom and coffin of doom and the coffin of darkness for the row beasts. And so you can pop the hinge the lid upward and put the row beast inside. The wings will deploy from the sides. And my favorite thing with these is there's a little flashlight bulb at the nose of the coffin, just behind underneath the skull. And when you press a little button on the side, especially in the dark,
Yeah, it was
it
cool.
glows from behind and it lights up the interior. It is so eerie. It's amazing.
Mhm.
It is cool.
Yeah. And then at the bottom is the skull tank. And it's really nice. It's got a telescoping neck and it elevates on ratchets and it's got some little wheels that make little clicky sounds as you move it along. And it doesn't have any battery power
Just a
features
push.
or
As you
but
push
it's
it, the head goes back and forth.
yeah,
I remember.
the mouth opens and closes and the eyes
Right.
bob up and down. It's just amazing. So much fun. So getting into the unreleased toys. Um, these are images taken out of the 1986 Toy Fair catalog. Um, we haven't really talked about the 86 stuff. How much involvement did you have with these?
Um, I I was involved with these as well. I'm looking down at just so you the Robeast Cyclops and the Robeast Medusa. I think those were two of John Furtick's design,
Okay.
and they were made. Well, I was hoping they were made. I thought they were made, but I guess they weren't. But they
So
did get in a cartoon from what I was told. So that's what I was told.
yeah, in I think Medusa, well, I think Medusa might have been inspired by the cartoon. I'm not entirely sure, but whatever
Hmm.
the case, they're really great designs. Um, And then Mark had mentioned a Sven character. He would have come out in '86. There he is at top right.
Right.
And it looks like for reasons I cannot understand, there were plans to make a revision to Princess Allura. Um, it is different, markedly different from the original version from '85,
Mm.
but it's
More to the
relatively
cartoon.
subtle. What's that?
I think it's closer to the cartoon.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's interesting that when there are many other characters that can be chosen, doing a 2.0 of Allura is quite it's a fascinating choice.
Yes.
That definitely looks closer to the way Carrie Keegan was dressed when she cosplayed as Princess Allura. Do you
Oh,
remember
back
Carrie Keegan?
yeah, this was back in the early 2010s, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, and then there's some villains there across the left at the bottom. The two on the far left at the bottom appeared only in those later 20 episodes.
Mm,
So presumably the visual designs or the characters were locked down, were in the works. But it's neat to see them in figure form. I sure wish these had all been made.
I agree.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah. And so moving on, you have some familiarity with these, don't you?
Couldn't
So
tell one of
there-
my favorites.
Yeah. So these to our listening audience are the coffins of deception. Apparently, there were three different gigantic Robeast coffins that, in true more than meets the eye style, can unfold into Robeasts. So rather than the small action figure size Robeasts, these would have been large enough to
Like
take on
Voltron.
Voltron himself.
Mhm. Yeah, these grew to anywhere, I think it was like 12 to 13 inches. I thought it was more like 13 because Voltron was what, 14, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so these guys grew to about 14 inches. I think they started out at 8, and then when you undid them like this,
I'm going to stop
Oh,
sharing.
Yeah. Let's take a good look at this.
when
Yeah.
you unfolded them, then it turned out to be like 13 inches.
Wow.
It was a transformer.
Exactly.
So to our listening audience, Patrick just showed a letter-sized image detailing how each of these three Robeasts would have expanded from the coffin, with the limbs extending and the head flipping up and all that. It's just really neat to see.
Well, you had to start with something, and the coffin is the piece, and then from there, you had to break it apart to make it open up and grow into a Robeast. So that was the challenge. That was fun.
Yeah.
Another
No doubt.
fun thing.
Looks so great. And so let's see here. Oh, I found additional pictures of.
You see the purple one there? You see this little screw on his arm? Right on his arm? Right
Yes.
there. Yeah, right there. You can see
Yeah,
all the
wow.
prototyping.
That's so neat.
And look how much bigger they are than the action figures.
Oh yeah.
That's just awesome.
Now what's
like both
another? Yeah, I mean, another thing I really love is that the Robeast in the center. I couldn't find any image of it in the coffin configuration, but the head looks almost like they traveled through time about 10 or 15 years in the future and found Darth Maul from the Star Wars prequels.
Star Wars. Yeah, I know. Isn't that funny?
That's so funny. So maybe Lucasfilm owes you a royalty check or something.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but it's fun to think about. So here's next on the hit parade. This is the probably the pièce de resistance of the '86 wave that was not released. Castle Doom.
Oh, this was so fun.
Yeah. Do you recall who might have worked on this?
I think this was Don Rosenwinkel. I think he was the main designer there, but like you see the eyeball on the that comes like a little snaky thing, and then there's an eyeball. You see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that. I designed that, and
Oh yeah.
I did. If you could see that little prototype
Well,
there,
Up.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
Yep.
So we can
Let's take a look at this.
when you look down at the corner, see if you look down in the corner of that when he was sharing, you'll see this piece from Castle of Doom.
Okay.
That's neat. I'll reshare so we can see that again.
Yeah.
So this is the piece in the lower.
Yes.
Yeah, right there.
Yes.
I thought you meant the eyeball on a stalk over here.
Well, that I did that too.
Did you really? Wow, you had a thing for eyes and screens there, didn't you? Or
Well,
displays.
This was
Wow.
part of what was developed.
Yeah.
I mean, Don Rosenwinkel did these. I can't be 100% anymore. I'm old. It's like that. But this was a fun play set. This is another fun play set. Both play sets were really great. But
Yeah. What thing that's really interesting about this one versus the castle is that the castle looks like it was designed more from the outside in, and this one very much is inspired by the throne room, the interior of the castle from the anime.
correct.
And then it wound up being essentially the interior only, but I just love the aesthetic.
I do too.
And the action.
Those eyes flip, the guns flip down through the eyes.
Oh,
So
really?
they fold up, and you can
Okay.
pop them down, and then they shoot. Well, they don't shoot, but it looks like
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Well
just
played,
neat. I
Greg.
mean, yeah. So if we look on the top right corner, there's it looks like the platform at the top of the steps that the throne sits on
Yeah,
is some like a sky sled or something,
yeah.
and the throne
That's what it
launches
is.
off of that. So
And
cool.
he launches, yeah. It is pretty cool.
Oh yeah. And I really think that a lot of, and I'm not trying to be well, I am going to be critical. Hasbro's it's play sets, if you want to, putting air quotes around that word, that they sell these days are little more than glorified display stands for their action figures. I feel
Sure.
like they've pretty much forgotten what play value is in a lot of these environments. And this is when, I go back to the Kenner Death Star with the trap door and the trash compactor with the foams, like the sponge bits for trash, and the little catwalk that they had back in the day. And then the play sets like this, where you had the elevator with the castle of lions and the little platforms you could put the lions on, the gun turrets, and this with all the pop out weaponry and the flip down staircase to reveal the coffin. This is what toys are all about, the fun.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. There's things to play with. It
Yeah.
just it takes you to a place and there's things to play with. It's not just, a graphic, pasted on a plastic wall.
You actually feel like you could reenact scenes from the show.
Exactly. It's a
Yep.
place.
Agreed.
That's what a place that's supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
you know?
And these would definitely the castle is like I've said, it's easily, I would say it's in top three, if not top two or top one of my favorite play sets of the
Well,
80s.
Greg, I really appreciate you having these because I haven't seen any of this in years.
Wow.
I am so happy to see these. This
Well,
is
we're happy to share them with you.
Yes.
So if we jump ahead a bit, let me,
Yeah.
I'm still sharing, moving on. What is this thing?
that was a ship, and I designed that one actually.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was I forget which ship that was, but it was based on the cartoon.
Okay.
Um, I can't remember what ship it was, but yeah.
So, so to the listening audience, as well as for the benefit of you, Mark, if this is not familiar to you, in the 1986 Toy Fair catalog, in the wide shot of all of the toys suspended in the air up in the sky, is the top image that you see here. It's a spacecraft that is not otherwise identified. It is not highlighted anywhere else in the catalog. So
Mhm.
I've kind of called it the mystery spacecraft. And down at the bottom, this is an image that I found in the Voltron from Days of Long Ago, 30th anniversary celebration. This is an upside down, cropped and undistorted, if you can call that undistorted, image. That this was a picture of Peter Keith and Ted Koppler seated at a table, looking. There was the Panosh Place Voltron
Mhm.
uh, shown, and then this thing was on the table with them with some markers in their hands. And when you flip it upside down and stretch it and work some Photoshop magic on it, this is still not a beautiful image because it's so distorted still, but it's some inkling of what this toy would have looked like from other viewing angles.
Correct.
And as near as I can figure, this is one of the Galaxy Alliance cruisers from the
That's what it
vehicle.
was. That's exactly, yeah, it was a Galaxy Alliance cruiser.
Yeah, it's
And
yeah.
you
Do
can
you
see
have?
it fits the figure too. So
Yeah.
This is the bigger picture of what he was pulling that from.
oh wow.
So
So
imagine him zooming in on that picture that's sitting right down
Oh
here.
my gosh.
And he turned it upside down and zoomed in on it.
yeah, that's what I did.
All right. Here's
Yeah, it's a really great book.
I did like I said with the key cars and things like that. Like I did some this is the Alliance, or these were light toys that I had done. I'd done all kinds of things for them.
Wow, look at that,
Never-
Greg.
I saw them nighted, the light of day here, but so
That
Wow.
is
So
so cool.
is this um
These were done for key cars and other things that I had done.
Meteor Breaker, Battle Cruiser.
Yeah, they were
So-
all. Go ahead.
I can tell you where those are from. So those are Galaxy Alliance, Galaxy Garrison, same kind of
Right.
deal. Warships from the vehicle team episodes of Voltron. So
Right, because that's what I did, key cars. I was doing key cars for this and other small, like flywheel vehicles.
Okay.
That I was working on. That's why I was just looking for ships. That's why I
Yeah.
linked with all the ships, and I'm trying to think, well, where did I come up with that one? And then this is pretty cool. I did flywheel vehicles.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh, flywheel powered.
Yeah. So these were all flywheel.
oh my goodness. Could you hold that a little more centered so we can get a good view of all? Oh my Lord, those are beautiful.
Those look great.
Thanks.
Patrick, you have really blown
Yeah.
my
These haven't seen the light of day in, I don't know, 30, 40 years.
amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
It's stuff. So anyway,
It's good stuff.
it is good stuff.
Yes.
That's
That's
a good year in my life.
wow. So cool. So
I did have this ship came out of a cartoon somewhere because I had to have stills of it to create what you see here. So obviously what was on the bottom here was something that they gave us. And I just can't remember, I'll be honest. There's just too many things that,
sure. Yeah, I wish I had better pictures of this. I actually asked
me
Tiffany
too.
Alar-
I wish I had them. Every
Yeah.
time I see this in the old catalog that I have, I just go, damn, what was the name of that damn ship? I couldn't have.
Yeah. Yeah, I had asked Tiffany Alardi, who works at World Events Productions, about the photo of Ted and Peter. I need to double back and ask if she's got a better quality image of that. I would love to see that image more clearly. But anyway, beautiful stuff.
I'm just one person. There was, you saw that whole line. It was so many people touched everything. Like, I forgot to mention Terry Webb created the actual model. I did the drawings and gave him concept, and he actually physically made the model. Terry Webb, model maker. And when we were going, I wanted to mention his name like a lot of others. Most of the guys' names I gave you were designers. They were all designers, but there was a whole team of model makers. These men were just incredible. I mean, you mentioned Katzman,
Allison Katzman.
yeah, Allison. She was a wonderful lady, number one. But yeah, she was so talented. It was probably the most talented place I've ever been in my life. I mean, everyone was just amazing. I mean, truly an amazing designer, model maker, sculptor, whatever. They were like the best of the best. I mean, when I say that, I really, truly meant it. They were phenomenal. And it was just one of those places that, once they got so big, guys retired, then there were only a few people designing, or should not say designing, but running the place, making money for everyone else. That's the reason Marvin Glass dissolved. It's because everybody was retiring. So you don't want a couple people working the rest of their life to make all these other guys all this money. So
Yeah.
that was the reason. It was not because they went out of business. They were doing fabulous. I mean, as I told you, some of the games and and toys that they did were just amazing.
So I want to address an elephant in the room.
Okay.
And the elephant in the room is that the Panosh Place Voltron is very highly regarded by a whole lot of Voltron collectors.
Okay.
It is also sometimes compared unfavorably with the Matchbox version. And I am not one of those people, because to me, the Panosh Place version is the better toy. There's just no way around it. But one of the things that people have griped about,
Okay.
and I'm not saying this to be critical of you in any way, Patrick,
No.
but I do want to just at least, the shoulders of the Panosh Place Voltron have a red decal
Mhm.
that must be oriented pointing upward for the keying system to work and have the arms connect. And in the anime, over on the left, the shoulder red patches face forward, and the Matchbox toy generally does that too. And when I say generally, because if you look down here below, this is from Matchbox's own 1985 Toy Fair catalog. Their image is mistransformed with the red patches at the top. And so I was wanting to know if you might, if the folks at Marvin Glass might have used images of the Matchbox toy to determine how to orient these shoulder bits. Does that ring any bells or?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't remember, um, having a Matchbox toy to refer to.
Okay.
We designed this.
Okay.
But I I have seen pictures of this Matchbox toy.
Okay.
And I'm sure that when we're looking at it, when I was doing them or
Uh-huh.
designing it's possible I could have looked at that. I don't recall doing it.
Okay.
Um,
And, and that's fine. I was just curious.
I,
Because again, I think the Panache version is the better toy because I will tell you, I had the Matchbox version, still do, but one of the nightmare scenarios I had as a kid is I remember carrying around my Matchbox version and the yellow leg fell off on concrete, and I was devastated as a child. That never happened with the Panache Place toy. There was, and with the action features, there are many people who do prefer the Matchbox version, and that's great. I think it's wonderful. I prefer the Panache myself because it just was so much fun to play with. So,
well, I'm
I,
glad.
yeah, I mean, I just wanted to ask you about that. And this
But
again was
yeah,
not
I don't remember ever having I mean, I eventually later on, I did see the Matchbox version, and actually tried to play with the lions, and the interlocking mechanism, and I
Mhm.
found it the same as you do. It was too hard.
Yeah, I mean,
Wasn't easy enough.
so the shoulder here,
Mm-hmm.
now this is 40 years old. The
Right.
shoulder is all kinds of scratched and scuffed on both sides,
Mm-hmm.
where just to disconnect the lion, you had to press these wedge shapes on the underside of the red and green lines bodies
Right.
against this plate. And it was always so cumbersome, and it just scratched the living daylights out of the shoulders. And not so with Panoche Place. So here are the lions as well. And the photo down below, I don't have my childhood Panoche lions anymore, but I've since recollected far more than I ever had as a kid. And so down below happens to be a photo of my childhood Panoche Place lions.
Okay.
But I always admire, and this is one of those things that I can say in my hobby work is something that I think people can't often appreciate is when you have play features, the play features have to work physically. And as you had mentioned, Patrick, in the anime, the TV lions, they can do whatever they're drawn to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
But when you have to add action figures and make them transform, or in the case of Matchbox, just in air quotes, make them transform, your design constraints are considerable, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
As you
And
notice, when you're looking at even at the legs here, at the bottom, your bottom panache set,
Mhm.
the legs are this way because you have to fit an action figure inside. So your body
Yeah.
can't be any thinner than it was, to make everything, line up. The cool legs or on the drawings, and then you look at the other version up here, that's the reason why they were done the way they were done.
Yeah, I mean, if the legs had been beefed up and made wider, as exactly as you said, and this is something I did not fully appreciate still until I started. I've literally studied these designs because as inspiration for my own hobby projects. The widths of the legs, if they were made any wider, the robot would have had the entire design would have to have been enlarged, which would have made the toy unaffordable
Right.
at a large size.
Mhm.
So yeah. So anyway, you'll get no gripes from me. I'm enamored by this thing. And that's
Hey,
me,
very
uh,
nice.
with less beard and less gray, and less glasses. Uh,
Well,
that's my childhood toy, and
that's awesome.
it brought
I'm so happy. You just made me so happy. I love seeing children with the toys that I make, but especially Voltron.
yeah, and
Oh, while we're on that, can Patrick tell the story about the girl who slept with her Voltron?
Oh yeah, a friend of mine, when I went to visit them, their next door neighbor, little girl had a Voltron, had the Panosh Voltron, and she would take it everywhere she went. She would be hugging it like a doll, but you know, it's a hard plastic piece. And her mom told me she takes it to bed every night.
Mhm.
And I was just like blown away by that. And it was just the nicest thing. And every time I came down, her mom would tell, see this man here? He's the one that made your Voltron. She'd say, thank you, sir. I really love my Voltron. He's my favorite. And I'm like, mine too.
Wow.
It
that
was
is
so
so
sweet.
amazing.
It was so sweet.
So in a similar vein, we had the privilege of speaking with one of Voltron's original producers, Franklin Kofod, and he had mentioned a story where someone learned that he lived in their neighborhood, and
Mhm.
and I don't recall if it was he who answered the door or his wife, but knocked on the door, rang the doorbell or whatever. They opened the front door, and this child looked up and said, "Do you make Voltron?" And they said yes, and then the child just kind of walked away, like smiled and then walked away. That's
Just
all they
wanted
wanted
to
to know.
know. That's it. Good to
Yeah.
know.
And I'll share another personal story
Okay.
from my adulthood. So I
Mhm.
have a 12-year-old daughter, and when she was about 2 or 3, I gave her a Panosh Place Voltron with figures, and the lions were missing their canopies except for the chest piece for the black lion. But she had all the figures, and the two of us had an amazing fun time playing with that toy. Um, 30 years removed from the original design, 25, 30 years. And she enjoyed that, even though she hadn't really watched Voltron at all, purely from the enjoyment of that as a toy. And, it's one thing to have licensed merchandise and say, look, I can play Voltron, but to get genuine entertainment and fun and play out of something purely on the basis of it being a toy with little or no recognition of the intellectual property that it's based on really is a telling it really is a tell of how powerful and effective that toy design is.
Well, that makes me so happy to hear because it is, it is about the toy. The toy connects with the child. And you just made me so happy by saying that. Thank you so much. I, it, it tells me that I did a good job. And, it really makes me happy. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will and as a kid at heart, probably for the rest of my days, um every design that you have brought to children, and I don't know all the designs that you've worked on, and you don't recall some of them, and
I don't
that's
recall half
fine.
of them. That's the
But
problem.
but just imagine the joy that you have brought to so many people's lives over the years, and
Yes.
these have just been small samples of what is out there, and what a mark you have left on the world
Wow.
for enjoyment and entertainment and fun.
I do
Mhm.
appreciate that because it's all about connecting. And, a good toy is a good toy. And that's really all you can ask for. I mean, I, I collect some things myself, personal for myself, like my Voltron and some of the key cars and some of the other things, and even things other designers have done. I've signed pieces from other designers that I really connected with. So I really appreciate you guys being out there and connecting with Voltron and connecting with the Panosh Voltron. But it's just one of those moments in time that makes the world a better place.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate you guys Voltroning. I really do. I mean, I just do. It's finding out about you guys, and I can't do it this year, but I was hoping that, come out to the convention and meeting everyone, because I think you guys are pretty awesome. So, but this year I can't, but maybe in another year or so.
Well, VoltCon would be the better for it. Whenever you can come, we would love to see you there.
I think the makers of Pixar's Toy Story
Hmm.
just missed out on a perfect opportunity to have 5 lions combined together into one giant Voltron as part of the Toy Story dynamic. I think that would have been so
Totally
cool.
agree with you. I totally agree with you. That would have been a lot of fun, especially
Yeah.
next to dinosaur,
Right.
like this one here.
Right.
There you go. Love it.
Right.
On the wall behind me, this
Ooh,
horribly ugly wall, you will
that's
probably
nice.
notice
Wow.
there are 2 Panosh Place Voltrons still
Mm.
boxed up on the top shelf.
Gorgeous.
The solid box, the window box, and in the center, one of my 2 castles of lions. And I have so many action figures. Now, my collection is nowhere near as large as Mark Oliver's or Tim Ross's, but the Panosh Place toys are such a huge highlight. And just bring me joy to this day, just to look at them and again study them as I have. I've disassembled some of these things to see what makes them tick. And
Really?
gosh,
Wow.
yeah. And
Wow.
so they bring fun even to this nerdy adult. But thank you again. Is there anything else you'd like to say to uh toy toy aficionados, Voltron fans, anything?
Basically, just, you know, enjoy it. Enjoy what has been made, and create some of your own. I think, what Tim's done with the Robo Beast is fantastic. Because it keeps the fun. It keeps the fun alive. I mean, as you said in last week's podcast, with Tim, the idea of having your Voltron set up with the Robo Beast, I mean, at the same size. I mean, that's making memories. That's beauty, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
I think so.
Doing that back in '86
Yeah.
with the coffins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and-
with coffins, which I don't have one, and that's the one thing I wish I would have, obviously they didn't produce them. So, but I was hoping to get like a model of them myself, because it was one of my favorite pieces to work on, because it was, how do you get a coffin to then expand out and be able to fight Voltron on his, I mean, it was a bit of engineering. So it was a lot of fun to do. And it was a labor of love and all that. So it was one of those things I just really was hoping to, be able to pick up one of these days, but it was never produced. So it was just what it is.
I am still looking forward to people reenacting scenes between the large Voltrons with the large Diclops and being able to have their own little imagination battles.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, there's so many things you can do with what do you got?
I had the blue lion just
Oh, you
saying,
got the blue lion.
yeah, Sid agrees. So yeah, exciting times with what Tim and his friends have got going on with the Robies Diclops. But it has been such an exciting time talking with you, Patrick. Thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you
so
very much.
Thank you for
appreciate
joining
that.
us on Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast. And we'll see you all next time on
Yay, let's Voltron.